And our lady has joined. Hi, Ruthie. Let's see. Yes. Hello.
Gosh, I haven't really looked in the mirror. Just as the first time I'm seeing my hair and it's kind of everywhere. But hi.
Listen, quarantine hair, do not care.
That's
How
good.
are you?
I'm really good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for saying yes. We have been trying to do this for quite some time.
I know. We're like ships in the night.
Yes. And I was just asking people where they were from and what are the benefits of, being quarantined. And this is definitely one of the highlights of being quarantined. We've had time to do this, so thank you.
Oh yeah, no, thank you too. Thank you for being patient with me.
Every time I see your name, it makes me smile because as I've emailed you before, I've told you my grandmother, her name was Ruth, and
Yeah.
the people who really knew her and loved her called her Ruthie. So every time I see your name, I'm like, oh my God. And
It's funny. It's funny as well because I really only ever was called Ruth or Ruth the Tooth or Ruth the Toot. But then when I came to America, I think I couldn't get Ruth Connell online, and a couple of people had called me Ruthie out here, and it's really a nickname that's really started in America, and it's interesting because I respond to it now. You know, the Ruthie. Yeah, that's like kind of that's been the last kind of 9 years of my life. I've become a Ruthie, not just a Ruth, which
I
I quite
love
like.
it.
It's kind of cute, right?
It is. And, again, it makes me smile because she was my favorite person on the planet. She was powerful and just a total badass and did things for women and was always outside of the box. She would do things and then she would say, what she would either say, oh, she would just make up excuses or whatever. But she would walk around. If God forbid I walked in front of the window because she was on a big lake and you couldn't really see, but God forbid I walked around without any clothes on or half dressed, she'd go, what are you doing? And then if she'd do it, I'm like, but you're doing the same thing. She goes, I'm old. If they see something they haven't seen before, they'll shoot it. So, but
Um, I had a grandmother. My two grandmas were amazing. But just what you're saying about yours called Ruth, I had one called Ruby, and she sounds similar character. She ran a football team and took no prisoners and did a lot for women without making it about that. She just did for herself and for the people she cared about around about her, and so was this woman in a man's world running a football team. Alex Ferguson actually talks about her in his biography. They were friends, and yeah, like these women that worked. She was a land girl in the war. These, like, I feel so lucky that I had these women in my life as archetypes before I even really knew what feminism was or anything like that. Just, yeah.
I agree. It's funny. Both of my grandmothers were very outside the box thinkers. Back. So I had my Instagram tells me that I've been on for too long today. So, both of my grandmothers were very much powerful women. And I remember one of my first memories is being a little girl, and I probably was 7 or 8 years old, and I had a shirt on and it said, never underestimate the power of a woman. And we were standing on the side, my mother and my grandmother and I were standing on the side of the road, and it was, election time, and we were holding signs for a politician. And I remember, and I didn't realize the impact that had on me until I got older. And I started to look back at my life. And then my other grandmother was, you'd walk into her house and it was like a crazy space because she was collecting anything she could collect to donate. So people,
Oh.
knew her everywhere because she'd always bring them little gifts. She did not want anybody to ever suffer and not have something. So
Mm. Yeah, amazing people, really. I don't know if they build them still the same. And my grandma, the reason she ended up running the football team was because the local park, I think, was going to, Duncan Park in Bonnybridge, was going to close down. And she thought, some of these young men that had survived the war and whatnot, like they were not going to have this amenity, or they weren't going to have this team anymore. So it was from wanting other people to have something good that she then became this quite well-known character in my area in Scotland. And then my other grandmother, Margaret, she was a nurse. And then in her spare time, she was a Samaritan. She would answer the phone lines for people who, like, it was the first kind of suicide hotline type thing. And I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky. First thing to be grateful for, you know. And my mum, I'm so super grateful for her mum too. I think sometimes it's easier with our grandparents.
Right.
They're like, they don't have to discipline you as much, and they're not doing all the stuff every day for you. You know, they're the kind of treats for you.
I agree.
Super grateful to have had those two people.
It's funny you say that about your grandmother, because it reminds me, I am my mother's only child, and my dad has two other sons.
Oh, I'm the same.
Yeah. So,
well, my dad married somebody who had two sons I'm very close to, so I'm very similar. Yeah.
It's funny because when people meet my stepmom, they don't realize that it's my stepmom, because we've been connected for so long, and my brothers and I we always say we're brother and sister, and that's it.
Yeah.
So people have no clue until sometimes it comes out and they're like, what? But you reminded me, because my mother, when I was little, decided one time, we lived in an apartment complex, and she decided that she was going to be the Boy Scout leader because she wanted the boys to have something to do so that they didn't get in trouble. I was like,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's these hobbies are so important. My mum, who was a guidance teacher as well, she said, you know, especially girls who are teenagers who have hobbies and things they're passionate about or care about, it really means that they, you know, they tend to do more for themselves, not just well, not just get nothing wrong with it, but not just fall pregnant at 16, or, you know, like they would tend to want to do something more career-wise and things, if they had these things to care about. Something you just said reminded me of something else. My brain's gone. That's another thing with this whole hiatus, if you
right?
call it that. So my brain,
just in case you didn't know,
like,
today is Wednesday, May 6th.
no idea about. Yeah, you have to really think about it, don't you? Yeah, really.
I hear you. Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks, this hiatus, as you called it. And I call my stepdad every day to do his sugar with him. So I have to ask him, what day of the week is it? What's the date? And he reminds me, so we get to do his insulin. But so what is
so nice.
best?
That's so nice that you do that. Sorry, it's so nice that you do that. And I have to say, I'm really grateful for, because my dad's remarried, and my mum's remarried too. And my mum's husband, Chris, has the same birthday as me. And my dad's remarried Moira, and her two sons, Scott and Neil, are similar ages to me. We get on really well. And he has the same birthday as my mum. And we're all like this kind of, you know, and I feel so lucky that, you know, there's nothing to say that when you inherit, you know, you can't choose your family necessarily, as they say, you choose your friends, but I really feel really lucky that I've had such a good experience. It sounds like you did too, like, possible.
Yeah, my ex, he's actually technically my ex-stepdad. And the joke is that when my mom and my mom got divorced, I kept him in the divorce. And, you know, one of the most beautiful stories that I share with people is when my dad was dying. My stepdad I was visiting my dad in the hospital, and I get a phone call that my stepdad, who lived like 5 minutes down the road, 7 minutes, was having a stroke. His boss was calling me, and he was like 80 something years old. He's like, I think girl's having a stroke. I'm calling the paramedics. And I'm like, what? So my stepdad's in one hospital, my dad's in the other. Finally, my stepdad gets out of the hospital. He stays with me for a couple of days, and I get another call that says dad went back into the hospital. So we run 45 minutes down the road to the other hospital, and I left my stepdad in the waiting room, and my dad looks at me. He's like, "Where's Earl?" I'm like, and now in the little tiny room was my stepmom, my two brothers, I think my brother's husband. It was a big party, it seemed. And I said, well, he's in the other room because I didn't think you'd want people in here. And he looks at me and he goes, what do you think you all are? You're all people. Bring him in. And my heart at that point was so overwhelmed with joy, because that was a huge gift that my dad gave me. And then for the fact that, you know, there was never like a contest, you know, to see who was the better, the bigger, the more wonderful dad. It was just kind of an acceptance. And you know, when my mom and my stepdad first got divorced, one of the best gifts my stepdad ever gave me was a Thanksgiving with my mother's family and my father's family in the same house.
Wow, yeah.
It was the best Thanksgiving ever. And it was just, we we just had such a great, the turkey ended up not coming out perfectly in the beginning because the oven stopped working. I had 40 people coming over, but it was the best holiday because we finally were able to get together and I didn't have to run to one place and the next. So
Yeah, there's that bridge that happens. You have to bridge that gap initially, I think. Yeah, but then it's so nice that you got there.
yeah.
I've been really lucky in America with my Thanksgivings. Always really early on, just to be invited because people knew you kind of new, or you didn't know so many people, or you weren't from here. And like I've never had a Thanksgiving where I wasn't invited somewhere. And I remember a couple of years ago, the night before Thanksgiving, my mom and her husband were actually here helping me because I got my house here, and they were out helping me. And the night before Thanksgiving, the electricity went and blew, and I had to actually get the whole house rewired. But which was unexpected, and I was like, oh wow, it's the night before Thanksgiving, and there's no cooker, no nothing. And Kim Rhodes from the show, and the people who are listening will know Kim, who lives very near me, invited me over to hers. And then Bob Behrens, who's one of the writers on the show, also invited me over. And I hadn't messaged them. I had just put something online like, oh my God, you know, I've got no power the night before Thanksgiving, and immediately invited to be to a couple other places, which was so nice. And I think when we ended up, maybe we got takeaway. It was okay. And then I visited. I think I went and visited. And so there's so much to be grateful for. When you know, our brains are wired for danger, right? We're wired to look for things that are wrong so we can troubleshoot and be safe. And just in talking, these conversations are important, I think, which is another reason I wanted to do this. Is when you start to talk about these things, you're like, oh yeah, that nice thing happened, and that nice thing happened, and that nice thing happened, and we don't often celebrate those things as much. Partly, I think, and maybe in Scotland, that you're kind of like, you don't want to be show off or be too big for your boots. And so sometimes you take the good things that happen and you internalize it and it's good, but we're not necessarily talking about it so much or celebrating it so much. And I think there's, without being big-headed or showing off or rubbing other people's noses in it or anything, I think there is a way of being grateful and appreciative that's sincere and inclusive.
I agree with you.
Yeah, but it's a you know what I mean? There's a balance there. There's like a sensitivity about it. Oh, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. And it's like, just because I am doesn't mean to say I'm also not struggling with 10 other
Right.
things. But we tend to get sympathy and empathy for some of our difficulty, whereas there is a way of talking about what we appreciate and showing our appreciation and consciously having these conversations whereby we focus more on what's fortunate in our lives without being a Pollyanna too, because I think that's really annoying.
You're totally speaking my language, because there's a couple of things that you said that, so I always tell people, you know, write down your gratitude win. So who or what made a difference for you? Because when we speak about gratitude, normally it's the forces outside of there. The I is, what did I do for myself? Because I agree with you. We need to start to pay attention. What did I do well? What did I do for somebody else? And acknowledge that, and not in like a braggadocious way, but in, again, a way of saying, you know, I am pretty cool. I do some really great things, and it's a great self-esteem booster, and write them down. And then, did I do something new, and what made me smile or laugh till my sides hurt? And I'm glad you said the Pollyanna thing, because when I talk about gratitude, I'm very clear with people. Just because you practice gratitude doesn't mean that life is perfect and wonderful and fantastic all the time. What it does is it gives you that space that even in the middle of all the craziness, you're still able to pinpoint and pick those beautiful moments. And I think that's really the powerful part, is
Yeah.
to not pretend that everything is wonderful.
Yeah, and I think it's that thing, the appreciation about what other people are also doing for you. And sometimes I realize I internalize that as well. Like my shyness sometimes means I think, oh, that was really nice, and it feels very florid, um, to be like, thank you so, you know. Again, I think that's maybe my Scottish sensibility sometimes. But then I realize, you know, it is important, even if I feel self-conscious, to verbalize it. And I think that's a much more American thing. I think that's the thing that Americans do well. um you know, they will say, and sometimes, you know, again, I get like, you know, I get a bit shy about it sometimes, especially if somebody's saying it to me. And it's important to receive those things as well, to be like, oh, you're welcome. And like, that person gets pleasure from you receiving their gratitude
We
for the
speak
thing
the
you've done.
same language, lady, because the energy of giving and receiving is the same thing. If you push the people away and don't accept it, you're
Mm.
not allowing them to give you that gift. So I wholeheartedly agree.
And especially what I see with the fans, supernatural people that I've met, you know, sometimes, you know, the fans will be expressing what the difference that my characters made, or my performances, or something like that. And there's a bit of me is like, well, you know, I'm just lucky to do what I do. But it's not to detract or nullify their experience. You know, like, I don't want to be arrogant and be like, oh, wow, you know, because I did this, you know, this meant this to them. It's like, well, that's just a fortunate thing that happens, and I'm really grateful to be in that position, and um mindful that honestly I get just as much from the fans appreciating what we do. I get just as much from their appreciation. Like, I get this double whammy of getting to do this great job and then receive the positive feedback. Often it's positive. And I'm super appreciative of the fandom. It's changed my life. I wouldn't be here sitting doing this with you. You know, none of this would exist for me without
Yes.
the fans' sheer appreciation, and gratitude. And I'm like, wow, it's and
It's
especially,
interesting.
yeah, and it's amazing with our fandom. Then what? I don't know. I just read. I hope I'm not misquoting. Like, I don't know if we've paid for 165,000 meals from the last T-shirt campaign that Stans did, with everyone still, you know, finding their $25 during this time to buy the shirt, to be included in. And I know I have your shirt, these emblems that we wear. I actually wore your gratitude shirt. I thought it was so beautiful, and such a great sentiment. I wore it to one of the conventions. I think some
I
of the fans
love it.
have seen that you're wearing it right now.
I am. I would love to talk to you offline and see how we could do something together, because I would love to be able to give back as well, I think. And I love that you're doing that in this time. And I think that's one of the things that has been so amazing. You know, I live in South Florida and we have hurricanes, and sometimes it's when I lived here through Hurricane Andrew. I was born and raised here, and I think one of the most miraculous things is that even in crisis, to see the humanity, and even the humanity that's happening now, the donation of food. And I find that most people are being really kind to each other and supportive.
And all we need is a couple of, like, the billionaires and the really rich companies. We just need a couple of those, or each of those, to show that same generosity. Give everybody a couple of months break on rent, on refunds for things. You know, just that same generosity from the bigger companies, the wealthiest, people in the world. And, like, you know, you see $1 million being given here, $1 million being given there, but you know, if everybody could tap into that just for a month or two, there is no reason the whole planet couldn't just get a reset. We'll see. We'll see how.
From her mouth to God's ears. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you.
And just to let you know, my phone is on the red. It's flashing at me, so I probably only have another minute or two
Okay.
before I don't know if it showed you it came up that it's going to cut me off, I think.
Well, I just want to thank you for doing this and for being here. And I am extremely grateful that you took the time to speak with me and to share your thoughts about gratitude. And it's been a long time coming, and you made my day.
Oh, mine's too. It's been so nice. Thank you so much, and thank you
My
for all that
pleasure.
you do. Yeah, so I can tell you just do what you do because you believe in it and you're paying it forwards all the time. So thank you for your persistence and thank you for your patience with me. Thank you.
My pleasure.
It was
I will
lovely
reach
catching
out
up
to you
with you.
offline.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm sure it's been a nice 20 minutes for everybody who's joined in. Thank you. Thanks to everyone. I'm just reading your little messages. The Witch Queen. And there's so many Brazilian fans. You've always got to say oi. You give a shout out to Brazilian fans. Thank
I
you.
have to go back and read it because I can't read the small writing
I
that
see.
fast.
Hi. They're saying we love this. Hi, Brazil loves you. You made our day. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you so much for watching. Slay with Rowena. Thank you. Here we are. Okay, I'm going to go now before I get cut off.
All
Thanks,
right, my dear.
Jane.
Thank you so much. It was great talking with you.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye.
Bye. All right, everybody, there you have it. I am Vismaya Rubin, founder of Living in Gratitude Today, and that was a super amazing, wonderful time and talk with Ruth Connell. And go back and watch the replay, please. If you're not following my channel, follow my channel. And the Gratitude Swag is available. Link is in the bio, as well as the information about the Gratitude membership. Thank you, everybody. Please keep posting where you're from and what is the best part of being in quarantine. What have you learned during this time? So thank you.